For the freshest and most flavorful berries and fruit this season, we suggest you try growing your own. Guten Yardening, everybody! Well, the soil outside is starting to warm up and the temperatures out there are becoming consistently warmer. Well, so far anyway, here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. And that, of course, has us thinking more about what we're going to be growing in this upcoming season. Now, we've been doing videos where we've made some suggestions as to what we think you should try growing this upcoming season. And this video is going to focus in on some of our favorite snacks in the garden, and that would be our fruits and berries. And so we're going to focus in on a couple of those that we've had success with here at Guten Yardening, ones that we think aren't too difficult to grow, especially if you're a beginner gardener, and ones that we definitely find useful, delicious, and all around great additions to the garden. So let's go ahead and get started with strawberries. And one of the nice things about strawberries is that once you buy them once, for most varieties, they send out runners, and if you capture them, you can essentially have a lifelong strawberry crop from that initial purchase. Now, it takes a little bit of work to do, and you have to continually save, but because those plants last for 2 to 3 years and produce fruit well during that time, and again, you capture and you continue that process, what you'll find with strawberries is, number one, they're not that picky. They actually grow pretty well as long as you keep the area weeded, and as long as you're out there caring for them and protecting them over the winter. You don't have to dig them up. They will come back the following season, and so they're a wonderful starter addition. And this past season, we even started growing them in a vertical garden. In our greenstalk vertical garden, we have strawberries growing. We have almost 90 plants in that garden, and we're going to see here very shortly, in fact we have a video coming out on this pretty soon, what it looks like after we overwintered those strawberries. But I can't wait to see that vertical garden of strawberries growing. Strawberries aren't that difficult to plant. They're definitely a worthwhile fruit. We've done other video content on strawberries. If you'd like to see that, go ahead and check out the videos in our description. We'll show you exactly how to plant your strawberries, and you can enjoy a wonderful, tasty snack. Let's move on to our second recommendation, and that is the raspberry. Now, there are so many different types of raspberries available. We're growing 3 varieties here. We're growing a black raspberry, a heritage red raspberry, and a golden raspberry at Guten Yardening. And I'll say this, out of all 3 of those, the taste, the flavor profiles are actually pretty different. My favorite is the golden raspberry. I think it's just a little sweeter. It's a little bit of a bigger berry than the other ones that we grow, but we have a large variety of raspberries here because we get crops at different times of the year. Some of ours are summer bearing, which means that we only get fruit on the second year canes, the flora canes. And then we have some of our fall bearing raspberries, like our heritage red raspberry, where we get a crop later in the season on that first year, that prima cane. And then we get an even heavier crop the following season on the flora cane. And so with that variety, we get multiple harvests each year after the first year. Now, raspberries are one of those plants that will grow, it seems anyway, just about anywhere. And in fact, you have to be more careful about making sure they don't expand and take over more than them dying. At least that's been our experience. But if you're looking for a berry that's going to provide you with a lot of fruit and is pretty low maintenance other than when you have to cut them back and again maintaining to make sure they don't spread too much, this might be the plant for you. Now, just like quite a few of the other fruits that we're going to talk about today, we've done multiple videos where we've talked about the differences between the fall bearing and the summer bearing raspberries and also how to prune them. And so you want to check those out if you consider growing this berry. But in terms of taste, in terms of production, this one should be right up there on your list. Now, number 3 happens to be a discovery we made just by chance at a local greenhouse, and that is the gooseberry. Now, gooseberries have an amazing flavor profile, and I think one of the things that's really cool about gooseberries is if you harvest it a little bit early when it's still green, it's a little bit more tart. And then if you wait a little bit longer, it starts to turn a purplish color when it gets really nice and ripe, and then it's even sweeter. So it's still a little bit tart, but it's even sweeter. And you will see some really nice sized clusters. This is about a 1/2 inch in diameter. And it's one of those fruits that once you've had it one time, I'm convinced you're going to want more and more. Now, one of the nice things about this bush is that it does grow in either full sun or even into partial shade, like some of the other fruits that we're going to talk about today. But with this one, you have to be a little bit careful because there are some pointy little thorns, well, not so little, but some pointy thorns on the bush that you might want to be aware of if you have small animals or if you don't have it enclosed. And we keep ours behind a small fence to try to prevent the rabbits from getting in there, but I think it's got a pretty nice self-defense mechanism there anyway. But this is a heavy producer. We found that after the second year we were getting a ton of fruit, and it tends to fruit pretty early on in the season here in Zone 5. I think this is one of those fruits that's a unique taste that is not difficult. It's really not that picky when it comes to soil. It doesn't need anything really acidic. And this is one of those fruits that makes a great topping to ice cream. And just throw that out there as an option. Now, number 4, I'm going to actually combine 2 different varieties of the same type of berry, and that is the black currant and the pink champagne currant. Now, we got these at the same time as we got our gooseberries from the same location, actually, and we planted them, and what we found was that they produced fruit in that same 2 to 3 year range. They were able to use the same soil. They didn't need anything acidic. They have about the same needs when it comes to light, which is full sun all the way to partial shade, but they performed really well for us. They are a smaller berry, and unlike a lot of the other berries that we have here, I would say that this is not one that you necessarily are going to really enjoy eating just by itself fresh. Well, the pink champagne berry has a little bit more of a mild taste, and so maybe that one. They say that there are some really amazing health benefits that can come from the black currant in particular. Now, personally, I'm not going to vouch for any of those things other than to say when you eat fresh fruit and fresh vegetables, I mean, you're not going to go wrong, in my opinion. But if you take a look online, you will very quickly see some of the potential health benefits that they talk about when it comes to black currant. So we highly recommend taking a look at that. And this is, again, if you like making jams and jellies, etc., this is one that grows really easily, doesn't have the thorns of the gooseberry, isn't really particular about the soil. As long as you have some healthy soil, you're going to be just fine with tons of great production. Now, the 5th and final berry that I'm going to talk about is the honeyberry. Now, if you've never heard of a honeyberry before, what you're looking at is something pretty close in appearance to a blueberry, kind of like an elongated blueberry. And after tasting them, I would agree with the idea that they kind of taste somewhere between a blueberry and a raspberry. It's definitely not the same blueberry taste, but in my opinion, it's quite delicious. Now, we've tried growing blueberries here, and we've struggled trying to grow blueberries here. We're still working on it. We're not giving up because I absolutely love blueberries. But one of the reasons why honeyberries have become so popular is, 1, they're a little bit similar to blueberries, and 2, they are much easier to grow than our blueberries. And what we found is that in recent years they've been much more common in our local greenhouses. And so this is something that I think you should consider looking into as an option, especially if you're interested in something that tastes a bit like a blueberry but is much less picky when it comes to soil. Now, one thing you do need to keep in mind for honeyberries is that they like to cross-pollinate, which means that you should have a couple of different varieties planted close together so that they can actually bear a good amount of fruit. In our front yard and space, we have 5 honeyberry plants, and there are 3 different varieties. And I would guarantee you that your local greenhouse could tell you which varieties work best together. And once you've tried this, once you see the production, you're going to want to keep these growing. Now, here in Zone 5, what we found is that they start producing fruit early in the season, and we've had to be pretty careful protecting them from the birds because, well, they're appealing to humans. You know they're going to be appealing to birds as well. And really that goes for all the fruits that we've talked about today. You want to make sure you get out there and you harvest them when they're ready. Don't leave them on the vine, because one of the things that will happen is the birds will come and they'll take care of your harvest for you, and they won't have a single problem doing that. The most important thing is to know your soil and to know the requirements when it comes to growing each of them. And so we've sort of skimmed the surface today, but I want to remind you that all of the berries that we've talked about we grow here at Guten Yardening and we've had success with, and that's why we're sharing them with you. These are 5 fantastic berries that we think would make a great addition to your garden space. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video today, and if you did, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.